Hello and welcome. Today I have a piece for my ringed art journal, and I start with a close to 5 and a little under 5.5. It's kind of the remnants of a piece, and so I'm just using some distress inks and stencils and just applying some color. And I start with Vintage Photo is the brown, and Seedless Preserves is the kind of reddish purple. And so I use the stencils to lay it down some, or I smoosh it on, and I'm just trying to get ink with maybe a little bit of pattern on the page. You notice that the back of the pattern already had something on it. In my larger ring journal I do double-sided, so that was the back of another piece. And then I start to splatter some rusty hinge. Rusty hinge is my go-to for getting things looking aged and rusty. And then I want to add something with a little more red in it, or a little more orange. So I add crackling campfire. And I've decided to make a frame to go around. I bought this washi tape and I've aged it with the seedless preserves, and I think peeled paint is the other one. And I decide to layer that on a piece of mixed media paper and make a frame. So I'm just measuring how wide I want it, and then I put a little cutting mat scrap behind and my X-Acto knife tool and just cut my frame. Had I really thought about it, I would have cut it on my Cricut. But it doesn't have to be exact. So now I'm just going to apply my washi tape. Just making sure the right sides are up, but I don't necessarily, I didn't want to make it wide enough to hold the whole tape because that would be a really wide border. So I'm going to line it up at the edge. And stick it down. And it takes me a minute to remember that I need to cut that corner first, but to make an easy fold. Then I cut slits on the inside to fold it over. And I just kind of jump ahead because I'm just doing the same thing all the way around. So now I'm just finishing up my last little fold here. And I'm going to take some podge. And I'm just going to use it to kind of seal in all these edges. Once the back is done, I also put some Modge Podge to seal the front. And then I set it aside to let it dry. And it's dry, and I've made this little embellishment to go on it. It's just a little circle that I cut on my Cricut, but the circle's got a lot of uneven edges, like it's pointy, and so I clipped down each one of those edges and to kind of make it a flower. And then inside that, I'm gonna put a couple scraps. One's a book paper that I punched out. It's on cardstock, and I think it also has some distressed ink stenciled on it. Looks like Kitsch Flamingo. And the second piece was just a little stamp remnant, and that I'm sure is just a little piece of one of the stamps in the photo ticket booth stamp set from Stampers Anonymous. And so now I'm going to glue on my frame, and then seal it down or clip it down with some clips and let it dry. While it's drying, I'm going to work on my focal images, and this is a dragonfly that I've cut out on my Cricut, just on cardstock, and I could have just left it like that, but I dry it and then I smush it back into the ink to kind of give layers of color. give it a little spritz to get some light areas. And I wanted to try to add some gold, and I thought I would use a gold ink pad with the Stampers Anonymous stamp, but it does not show up very well. And I mean, the ink is dark, but the gold was not a great one. So I turned to my pot of gold, which is usually my go-to for gold spatter. I even dab some on. Apologize, I feel like I'm starting to lose my voice. I'll give that a dry. And I think it needs something. So I've decided I'm going to add some embossing powder. I'm going to use that same stamp and use the Versamark embossing ink pad. And so just stamping on some text on the dragonfly. Did I call it a butterfly a minute ago? My dragonfly. And then I'm going to use some clear embossing powder. And then emboss that with my heat tool. Okay, so my frame is dry. Gonna glue on my focal images now, and these are some stems that I always have available. I draw them onto black cardstock, and depending on what I'm drawing, like these are very delicate little leaf stems, so I'm sure I used my white jelly pen because it has a finer tip. If it's a bigger item and I want it to be the white to be a little more visible, I'll use my white Posca paint pen, the fine tip. But I'll sit down at night and take a whole sheet and just draw a bunch of whatevers and fussy cut them out. Just so they have them available. And I'm not crazy about that there's only two, so I grab another one. And this one I kind of put to where the leaf just goes over top the frame, just a tad. And I want to add a little ephemera there from the Tim Holtz line, and it's called number something. Let me grab it. I always forget what it's called. Oh, I thought it was right here. Here it is. It's called number strips. I always say numbers list, but it's number strips. And so I'm just gonna edge that with my StazOn black ink and glue it there right where the stems are coming out of. And I'm also going to use that StazOn to go around the edges. And I am not real careful about it because I kind of like when the pad just kind of drags along the surface to give it a little more messed up look. Actually, shoot for that a little bit. And had I thought about it ahead of time, I would have also done that to the inside edge before I applied it, but I didn't. And so I'm just going to use a black ink. I think this is a Sharpie pen. And just kind of draw a couple lines around the edges of the inside. And once that is done, the piece is done. You'll see a couple final pictures coming up. But I hope you enjoyed watching the process, and if you did, please subscribe and give me a thumbs up. And y'all have a great day.